standing in front of a 1901 Cotswold-style cottage that was built by renowned architect Frank Miles Day. What was it built for? It was built to house the superintendent who was running the horticultural program at the 65-acre Stoneleigh estate owned by the Bodine family. Stodine's first superintendent was Francis Canning. He was hired away from his work at Fairmount Park to create a really powerhouse horticultural program here at Stoneleigh. And so he lived here with his wife Sarah and had staff working throughout the landscape in the greenhouses and in the gardens that were behind the greenhouse. Francis Canning has an interesting story. In 1911, he passed away, and we found his death certificate, which listed his cause of death as accidental poisoning by mushrooms, which is very curious because this man had been trained throughout his entire career to be able to identify plants and fungi. And so what's the story? And so we did a lot of research to try to answer this question because he was very highly regarded and well esteemed throughout his field. There were several obituaries about him, and one of them provided the answer. It said that several of his men had unwittingly gathered poisonous mushrooms and gave them to his wife Sarah to cook for dinner. And so unfortunately he passed away inside this cottage, and we know that he's buried at Westminster Cemetery, and we were unable to figure out what happened to his wife Sarah after that. The next superintendent was Alexander MacLeod. He was a Scottish immigrant, and he was recruited similarly to Francis Canning to come here to run this horticultural program. He lived here with his family. He had 3 children. They were raised in this house. 2 of them served in World War II. And what's notable about the work that Alexander MacLeod did, other than his entire career in terms of education and horticultural development, was that he, along with Eleanor Bodine from the Bodine family, created this innovative gardening and horticultural program for women. And so he was the superintendent who was training these women, who was recruiting these women, working in the community war gardens and the greenhouses and feeding the community. And this is something that after his time at Stoneleigh, he continued to do. He was active in the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. He published widely. He gave many talks. And what you see from him is someone who had a generative mind and was always trying to share his knowledge and his enthusiasm for growing plants, feeding people, educating.